This is the informal panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you to please give a warm round of applause for our panelists here today. The ladies and gentlemen that are sitting with me are pioneers and peers in the industry. The wealth of experience and knowledge that we have amongst this group is unbelievable. I cannot do it justice, so I'm going to ask each panelist to give a short what's the word I'm looking for? Introduction of who they actually are.
Yeah. Hi, morning everyone. So my name is Rupen. I'm the CEO of a company called Victoria Courts. We specialize in home furniture. We started as a group. We're 55 years old, but my division we started 11 years ago, and we've now opened 6 stores within Kenya and 1 in Uganda. The other hat I wear, I'm the incoming chair for RETRAC, which is the Retailers Trade Association as well. So covering both from a big box as well as retail angle.
Thank you, Rupen.
Morning, everyone. My name's Natalie. I'm co-owner of Mama Rock's Burgers. So we sell gourmet burgers influenced by the different cuisines throughout the continent. We've been in business for about 8 years now, so I can't compete with the 55-year legacy, but we're babies in the game, yeah.
Thank you, welcome.
Morning, everybody. I'm Debbie Kippen. I head up the leasing for Grit Real Estate. We're a Pan-African property fund listed on the London Stock Exchange with a market cap of just under 800 million, 26% of which lies in the retail market across 5 jurisdictions.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Human Essani. I'm the Director of New Developments and Acting CEO of Green Hills Investment, which is the owner of the Village Market and several hospitality properties where we're active in retail, hospitality, recreation, and separately in residential development.
Welcome.
Thanks. Morning, everyone. I'm Sarit Shah, CEO of Sarit. We celebrated our 40 years last year. First mall to open in East and Central Africa. Part of the group is also Textbook Center, where I represent the family on the board. And also that gives us insights into retail as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, as Knight Frank, we are property managers. We are the go-between, the in-between. Before I started property management, I had a lot of hair and I was pretty. Then you end up having to fight. The landlords fight with the tenant and the tenants fight with the landlord. We get bashed around by both parties and we are hated by both parties because we don't generate enough revenue this side and we generate too much revenue on the other side. So part of this panel discussion was to get the various different parties. We have a retailer, property owner, we have property owners and developers, and we have tenants, retailers on the panel. TFC, round number 1, off you go, ladies and gentlemen. No, the reality is, as we were saying in the presentation, we want to try and engage. We want to try and get parties to start understanding each other. And I'm going to start with my dear friend here, Rupen, and I'm going to ask you, Rupen, in your rollout, you've got 6 or 7 of the furniture stores you occupy in excess of 1,000 square meters in most of those boxes. What leads you to open a store, and what do you need from these big bad people on the other side? Don't worry, I'm going to call him bad and big just now when it's reversed. But what do you need from these big bad people on the other side to make this thing work?
Yeah, very good question. I think big box is an interesting concept, and I think the first thing to realize is every different business has a different business model and different requirements, and I think it's good to understand which of the big boxes, and if I were to take the example of supermarkets, they have fast consumer goods. So there's a high traffic there. Entertainment could be another one, food could be another one. But then you've got sort of other retailers, if I were to say, let's say Decathlon, car showrooms, and perhaps myself, furniture showrooms, where the traffic is not so much. And if you look at the demographics and the research done earlier, the demographics in Africa are perhaps not quite what you see in the Western world. Just a year ago, I was in America, and in a furniture store, they'd get almost 150 to 200 people walking in a day. And for them, furniture is a normal item, whereas in Kenya, outside the informal markets, it's quite a luxury item. I'd be blessed if I get 20 to 30 people walking in a day. And that means the number of sales and all of that is not quite what it is. So I'll go back to the first question. First thought is, we are all here for the customer. And the customer in today's world is looking for value for money. And that means they want something which is really good at a good price, which is sustainable. And whether it's burgers, whether it's tea, coffee, or whether it's furniture. And it's our job as the intermediaries to be able to provide that. And all of us, we need a sustainable answer such that I'm able to give that service and have a cost base which sustains that. So coming back to your question is, we're here to serve the customer. And to serve the customer, several things we look at is obviously, what is convenience? What is a good footprint I can give so that I can give a choice to a customer? How do I give service and all the other things which retail expects? But most importantly, how do I manage my costs such that I'm able to give that fair price and value to the customer? And I believe that's where the disconnect is. And Mark, I think, put it earlier, historically, we've sort of got a big box and we just sort of put a building there, but really thinking about what is it the end person needs, and more importantly, the intermediary, which is the tenant. Because if I say, if a customer is happy, the retailer will make money. If the retailer is happy, we'll pay the landlord. I think it's simple, but unfortunately, the dynamics have not gone the way you expected, and suddenly you've got this big box and delivery has not been thought about, so on and so forth. So, and also the business model. And so for me, as I look to expand, I need to look to places which are convenient for the customer. I need to have a layout which is sustainable for my business, whereby deliveries and everything is not affecting the customer. We are a destination store. My particular business, not all big boxes, but mine is particularly a destination store. So we need sort of a nice open area, and you sort of see retail parks in the rest of the world, and that's something which can sort of work. But again, historically, and what you'll see is furniture stores tend to be on Mombasa Road. And that's because typically there were warehouses, big spaces, low rent, and that's sort of what works for us. So you need a destination store, which is with a fair rent. And if that's put in mind, and I'm not just talking about myself, but if you understand who the end customer is, and then now what is the retailer trying to offer, and then as a developer you come with a solution which then puts it together, then that can work. And you will get big boxes, as I said, supermarkets, entertainment spaces, which will work in a supermarket where you can demand a premium rent for all the convenience and everything you're bringing.
So Ruben, basically what I'm hearing from yourself, if am I correct, is the commercial terms are very critical to your sustainability, and obviously the operational infrastructure around that. Now, if I can ask one of my developers on that side, maybe Human, what is the counter argument away from the landlord side of that? Because, I mean, it's no different to barter trading from what I'm hearing. I want high, you want low, we got to find sustainability in there. But what is it from the developer's point of view that drives those rental levels that Rupen is looking at lowering?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thanks, Mark. And for the developer and the landlord, it's a battle, or it's a balance between certain major considerations. One is the footfall that big box retailer brings in, but also the value that it offers in terms of repeat business. So, as Rupen said, his business model is quite different, because you may visit a furniture showroom maybe once every 6 months, maybe if you're really excited, once every 3 months. And for a shopping mall, that's not so appealing necessarily. So you have to look at the incentives around bringing in that level of retailer into a space, and then what kind of space do you offer them? Because at the end of the day, they're a high-profile tenant, and they do bring in the right type of customer mix. It's just It's just about the footfall. Versus, for example, a gym, a large gym, would have people visit 5 times a week and a much higher footfall and taking a similar amount of space. So those are the considerations that come in as for a landlord, and then it's about also the prestige of the brand that's coming in, because that starts to signal to the market and to your consumers what level of consumerism you're actually supporting within your mall. And so I don't want to say you'll have lost leaders, but you will have kind of brand identifiers to say that you're established at a certain level. And for a mall like ours, which is more kind of middle to high end at the Village Market, we might have very high footfall by having kind of a cash and carry market, but it wouldn't necessarily suit the consumer image that we're looking to appeal to. So a brand like Victoria would be right, but we would have to balance it against the footfall aspects.
So if I could ask a question, the commercials that we're talking about are relevant to both the return on the building costs that we're involved with, but also there is the return of what the trader can do for the mall. Am I correct?
Yes.
In terms of that big box user, if they bring in additional footfall, they're dealing with additional marketing, etc., on a daily, weekly basis to bring people into the mall. A landlord could look at discounting the rental to that trader versus somebody just taking the same size box because it makes sense to the betterment of the entire development.
That's the consideration now, Mark. For us as landlords now, it's all about the level of connectivity that we have between the landlord, the tenants, and the consumers. So because there's this prevalence towards online shopping, there's the top of mind consideration now for us is how do we provide connections? That's what a shopping mall is now. The physical space is all about connections, human connections, interactions. And so if we have tenants that multiply that or allow for that and actually feed into a system that is about connectivity between people, even between consumers. So for example, as I said, gyms, entertainment, these are very interesting for a shopping mall. But if it's a standalone where you come in and leave and you don't really have much engagement, ultimately that's not going to be very valuable for a shopping mall.
Thank you. Queen of Burgers.
I like that title.
What is it that you need, and what are these horrible people doing a dirty on you? You tell us.
Yeah, I think what we need are concessions, because after COVID, we were battered. And our business model now relies on deliveries. So already a huge chunk of our revenues are taken away by the likes of Glovo and Uber. So during the week, we rely on those delivery partners, and malls are really kind of activated over weekends. So I think that at the end of the day, the profit margins that we're left with are not really inspiring. So I feel like a lot of flexibility could be given to the restaurant industry from malls. And that's what we're really struggling with, being able to be left with some kind of profit margin at the end of the day. There are also a lot of barriers to entry for us, as I feel like companies like Burger King, who have an international appeal, are given the first options. We can't afford the huge deposits that malls ask for as well. That's also a struggle for us. And within our metrics, rentals shouldn't be more than 8% of 8 to 10% of our turnover. And it seems that malls are, the levels of rentals that have been asked from us is like 20% of our turnover. So we're kind of left in this really sticky place of how do we make it work? Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. I think we're going back to commercial terms again, and it's I want cheaper, you want more expensive. But there was an interesting comment that was made there, where as a restaurant operation, on a metrics, 8 to 10% is your sort of pleasant sustainability, if I can use that. Now, I think the International Property Bank database shows that average occupancy cost throughout regional shopping centers worldwide run at about 14.7% currently. So there is obviously a little bit of a disconnect. But Debbie, we've seen in the earlier discussion, there's this concept of turnover rental that is spoken about. And I think we're starting to hear rental changing to base rental, or headline rental turning to base rental, and turnover rental, or it's just turnover rental. Can you please explain to us and tell us and educate us, what is this? What is the reality of it?
Mark, when we're doing a development, obviously we have a look at what is going to give us a viable return. And at looking at the viable return, we say our through rental for the mall needs to be X dollars or rands or whatever it is per square meter. And that is your through rental for the whole mall. Our big boxes are saying there's a sustainable rent to turnover level, be it 8%, be it 2.5%, be it 12% of their business. So I think one of the things that I need to maybe go back a step or two against is I really don't like that whole concept of what are those horrible people? Because the one without the other is never going to exist. It's a collaborative approach, and we need to start looking at it and working together to see that whole collaborative approach between the retailer and the mall, and not just the big box Burger King and the little retailer, because you need the big boxes to draw your tenants. You need to see them as your base anchors spread through the mall. Without your smaller little retailers and your niche tenants that attract your actual shoppers and make each shopping mall unique, it'll just be a copy and a paste, and they'll survive in certain areas, and in other areas a mall won't survive. So to make it more sustainable and to attract some of our bigger tenants, what we do is we then start having a look at these turnover rentals. What is a turnover rental? It's saying to a retailer, well, let's work together. Let's make something sustainable for your business. We're not going to have a look at profit. It is your base turnover, because your base turnover is what makes you work in my development. So we're almost taking the same kind of a risk. Let's work together on that. Let's have a look at your turnover. I need 10% of that turnover. You've done your market research and you've done your studies. I was very glad Evan spoke first to give a little bit that before we make any business decisions, we need to do that market research. And I've done my evaluation that I should do a turnover of X amount per month. 8% of it is going to be X amount. So I need to, what is going to translate into, let's say, $10 a square meter. I then have a look at my mall viability and say, okay, that $10 can work for me. And that is where we go with what is a turnover rental. What we often do have a look at then doing is saying, but we need a base rental, because otherwise I'm not going to get my funding from the bank. So I need to make sure that I'm getting that. I can go to the bank and say, this is what I'm going to be able to achieve as a revenue base for my mall.
So the developers are not the big horrible people, and the retailers are not these miserable discount-orientated people. It's the banks that are a problem, because they won't finance on turnover rental. It's just, if I can just revert back to that, I think we're starting to see a big change in the lending industry around sort of shopping center developments, where historically they were funded based on the developer or the owner's balance sheet, where today the banks are getting more involved from an aspect of looking at a bankable project, whether it's pre-let, whether it can sustain its own without the developer's balance sheet per se. I seem to get the same sort of feeling from the developers that you're now looking to the retailers. From what I understood you were saying, Debbie, is to say that the retailer, it's not just their space, I'm letting you space. I want to know who your target market is. I want to know what sort of business you can do in the shopping center. And we can structure rentals around that. Is that correct? So Is that a change in the sort of leasing philosophy over the last decade?
Very, very definitely. I think you've got to get involved with their business. You've got to have a look at their whole business model, understand what their target market is. Is it the right target market? And I think that is one of the things that we're asking for now. Before, we just used to say, can you pay the rental? Pay the rental, great, let's move on. Sign on the dotted line and I'll collect. If I don't collect, I'll kick you out. Whereas now, that whole concept is, where are you going to operate? And with a turnover rental, because we're entering into as a partnership, there are going to be a lot of restrictions as well. Is there a restrictive trade, a limitation of, is there a boundary on where you're going to open your next store? We don't want you cannibalizing the turnover that you're going to be doing in my store. What are your trading hours? What fit out are you going to be doing? We want to monitor your business to make sure that you are also going to be trading properly within that business. So that, sorry, I keep looking at you.
That's okay.
I'm talking.
So if I can just sum up, shopping centre management has become a science, and us people are no longer glorified rent collectors. We actually become managers now. Is that what you're trying to say?
Again, you're also a partner. You're also a partner.
So going back to the presentation earlier on, obviously we know that the first shopping centre in Nairobi was Sarit. So it is the peer of the industry, the doyen of the industry. But of recent, Sarit, am I right that it's gone through quite a change, a whole refurbishment, a whole redevelopment? Would you be able to tell us why through, what were the benefits, what were the problems with that?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Just on a lighter note, a month ago, there's an international retailer who I met, and they're looking at entering the market. So they said, these are our terms. My question is, are you the bully or we are the bully? and really, so what I'm just saying is we have to work together. It's no longer, I'm the landlord, you are the tenant. Basically, what I say is the way forward. It's changed. And in some cases, some retailers have become, hard stance. But the way forward is to work together. And you can't, every mall or every, as you said, you had some very good pointers there. One was location, size. Every mall has to have their own strategy. I've got my good friend here. Both malls are doing well, but we would have our own strengths. I can't say, Village is doing this, I should do this, right? So every mall has to have their own strategy based on the market conditions and the location. What you said. To go back, in the 80s, there were obviously the Dukawalas, and so the concept was born out of a visit by one of my uncles to Brand Cross, and that's how the concept we started 1983 as a shopping center. And then what happened is the trends started changing. In the early 90s, 2 visits to Singapore, the Far East, we realized actually you have and where food was starting, so you needed to bring entertainment in. So that's when we started the first food court, brought cinemas, gym, and again that worked very well. Then after the 2000, around the 2014-13, again trying to adapt to the market because Nairobi was becoming, you could see, we started hearing you're lagging behind, you're doing this, other malls are coming up with new developments, new features, new products. Again, we thought that, and this is where what I'm saying is important, is a developer should not just say, I've got money, I've got land, let me go build. It shouldn't be a vanity project. Shouldn't be. You have to work with the retailers. So our last expansion, which we started in 2017, just finished before COVID, when we went to the architect, we went with a brief. And we saw what the market wants. We had already spoken to, and in our case, we spoke to a few big boxes. We spoke to some small retailers as well, just to understand what exactly they want, what the market wants. Put the commercial discussion on the side for now. But you need to get your product right. And interestingly, we realized that the architects are not understanding what we want.
I said earlier, 5 to 7 years studying to fold papers.
So we went to, we tendered the job to international master planners, 4 of them. They came, we sat with them 2 days each, right? And we said, this is what we want. Because we know the market, and we had spoken to, as you said, with retailers as well. And one of them, we were comfortable, we won, and then they did the concept, and then we handed over to our local architects here. So they obviously went into detail, where you get schematics and then detailed design. So we've had to evolve. And we've evolved, even we faced the challenging times. We've learned the hard way, but we've had to evolve based on market conditions, what people want. And at the end, what we want is the tenant mix is critical, but the shopper, we can't forget the shopper. Yes, you might have some great tenants. Shoppers are not coming. Tenants are not going to get their commercial return.
So would I be right in saying that old adage of you build it big enough, they will come?
Sorry?
That old adage of saying you build it big enough, they will come, meaning the consumer will come, is not necessarily 100% relevant, because the macro environment around your shopping center has a bigger impact of whether they will come or not based on then you building it big enough. Is that correct?
I would say partly correct, unless you're taking a, let's say I'm just saying a 10 to 12 year view, and you're willing to have low returns to start with, and you believe that the economy will grow to what level you're forecasting, let's say 8 to 10 years down the road.
So you have to manage the community into your shopping center and your shopping center back into the community. Okay. Would I be right in saying, and it's a question I'm going to go through the 3 developers. If I look back, I get the feeling that historically the retailers' growth was based on the developer's ability to create space. But it seems that it's changing a little bit now, where the developer's growth is based on the retailer growth. I don't see developments being developed now that are standing empty, per se. They're all developed on the back of retailers wanting in. So has the game changed a little bit over the last 10 or 15 years?
So I think if I can just answer that, I've seen, and I remember it was a presentation that James Hoddle in the front row gave a few years ago, which was about that there's this constant cycle of oversupply, undersupply, overdemand, underdemand, and it's very hard to get it perfect. So in Nairobi, there's always been this like kind of 2-year running. It is a cycle where you'll have malls develop, a lot of space available, and then not enough retailers to fill that space. Over time, that will start to then fill up. And then there's no space available for the good retailers who are coming in. And so more malls will develop. And we just haven't got that balance correct. But in your presentation, it was quite interesting that we're almost set for another spike in terms of retail development coming up. There's been like a lull for about 6-7 years. So we're at a very interesting point, because there seems to be now a lot of demand, and there is an opportunity for considerable development to happen. So, for example, I mean, you brought up some successful malls here, or 2 of the most successful. Village Market sitting at maybe 98% let now, 97.5%. I think Sarit's at about 120% let. So we're okay, but it would have been interesting to have a mall that maybe is struggling a bit, and there are a few that are sitting maybe at 60-70%.
We'd love to, but the unfortunate thing is it's only the successful people that want to come sit on the panel. Those that are struggling have run away. So look, it's obviously something that I think EAPI are trying to drive, and it's good to see so many people coming in because retail is a very unique product in the property environments. And obviously there's a lot of debate around retail. You've heard in the panels yesterday, don't invest in it. You're hearing now that there's retailer demand for more development. So it's a little bit of a quandary. So I think this debate is going to elicit, and I think EAPI themselves are trying to grow the retail component possibly into its own conference. But I'd like to thank the panelists for very insightful information. I think it's been very good. It's been engaging. The whole good cop, bad cop, sorry, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to agitate. I'm calling my client there who pays my salary a big bad person, and she's taking offense to it. So I might be fired tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. But be that as it may, I hope you enjoyed that. Just in closing, if I can start at the end and just one sentence, one paragraph of where do you see the industry now and the industry going forward?
I think we should, for the next good years, don't worry about e-commerce. Let's go with retail. And sorry, just 1 minute. With COVID, you know, there's talks of, oh, cinemas will die, this will die, this will die. But we've seen industry is back.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? I want to hop on that. I know there's an e-commerce panel discussion earlier on, but in reality, there's this fight between bricks and mortar and e-commerce. And if you think of it, COVID was the best marketing tool for e-commerce that there could ever be, because we were all locked at home and we had no choice. I mean, retail sales moved to almost 90 to 100% in certain markets online. I think the jury is now out subsequent to COVID. Because if you look at in markets like China, and if you look at markets in America, the total online sales in 2023 was less than 2019 as a percentage of total retail sales. So we bricks and mortar people, so obviously we're going to push that agenda. E-commerce people are going to push the alternative agenda. The only question I'll ask you to do is look at the real data and the statistics and don't listen to the narrative around it. Thank you, sir.
I think just my final point would be that shopping centers more and more have a responsibility now to the community to be a place of as I said, connectivity, connections between people, between product, and with the community. And if you don't have that, and if you don't understand your consumer, you will suffer, because the consumer has options now, both in terms of where to shop and how to get their shopping. So we're very aware of that, especially now we're looking at potentially another expansion. We're very aware of incorporating that in our design early on, spaces for exhibition, spaces for entertainment, and not trying to fill every corner with just retail space, but actually allowing people to spend time within your mall and let that be part of their lifestyle. And also be okay that they will be at Sarit Center on a Tuesday, Village Market on a Wednesday, and maybe at home on a Thursday.
So you are friends, but you're also enemies, is what he's trying to say.
It's part of their lifestyle. They would get bored coming to the same place every day or every week. So we want to have them once, twice a week, and we want them to do their bigger shopping, obviously, in our mall. But we're okay with them having a coffee somewhere else.
Oh, David, I'm sorry. We're under pressure, ladies and gentlemen. They are about to give me chiboko, yeah. But those at Chiboko in Uganda
Mark, you should have negotiated more time for such an interesting topic.
Can somebody just remove Murray from here for half an hour, please?
Thanks. I think I'd like to echo a lot of the sentiments that have been said here. Just one of the things I would like to say is that we keep saying that it is a science. Retail's not necessarily only a science. It's actually a collaborative work of art between all of the parties, the retailers, the developers, the bankers, the shoppers. And again, we 100%. We've got to be responsible, create spaces where people want to come and dwell and to society so that they can grow and they can actually be relevant and successful. And only that way will they actually do the turnovers and continue to grow.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay, just quickly, I think I like what you said about flexibility when it comes to leases. I think that needs to happen a lot more. Otherwise, well, for Mama Rocks personally, we'll invest less in physical spaces and move towards more of a dark kitchen model to cater for a more of a delivery mode to reduce our overheads. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'll say, look, similar to what other people said, but I think brick and mortar are here to stay. I really see a big future for retail here. But at the same time, I believe it needs to be a bit of a partnership where all parties need to work together, whether it's the developer, whether it's the landlord, whether it's the tenant. And if all are successful, it's a win-win-win. And I hear some landlords are bullies and some tenants are bullies, and ultimately it's your bargaining power, right? And when I was small, when I first started off, I was told, hey, pay 3 months rent, deposit. You've got to pay, rent 3 months in advance. And, here's a marriage contract where divorce is not possible for the next 6 years, whether you make it or not. And the reality is it's still there. And as you become bigger and better, the landlords will start listening to you. But I'd like us to step back and say, guys, this is a relationship for the future. You don't want a tenant after 6 years leave. It's for the ever long. So let's work together. Let's be cognizant of everyone's different difficulties and let's try and work together to get a solution.
So in closing, I think what the panel is saying is we need to collaborate to succeed. But in able to collaborate, I think there's got to be an opening and an understanding of each other's business rather than just horse trading over rental. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. To my panelists, please, unbelievable.
Thank you, Mark.